Okay, really? Get whacked with this.
Okay, I like that.
8:30?
No later. It can be a few minutes earlier.
That's right. It's not a goal, it's a limit. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Okay. See, we're missing a few group members, but I haven't heard anything. You guys, anyone heard from Don or who else is missing?
I'll reach out to Dawn again because I think she missed last week.
Don?
No.
Yeah, Don. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I guess let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's start with a few opening remarks here. There's a new comment sheet over on the side there. Much larger, hopefully it's sufficient for everyone to fill out their comments. If you have comments, go ahead and fill them out, and we will get to those at the end of the meeting, time permitting, of course, but we'll make every opportunity to finish up and get those addressed. Michelle, you want a couple of guests here?
Sure, I just wanted to announce the guests that are in attendance. We have Dennis Lip, Administrative Assistant to County Commissioner Jesse Maria, thank you. We have Tim O'Connor with the Palm Beach County Health Department. We have Joseph Lurix with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and Jack Long is also here with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, as well as Laura Corey, she's here from South Florida Water Management District, and Representative Joseph Abruzzo that serves a portion of the acreage will be here later this evening. So.
Okay, super. Thanks for everyone coming tonight. I guess let's go ahead and get into item number one. It's the South Florida Water Management District representative. We had every intention to have a full presentation here this evening. Unfortunately, the length and breadth of the questions that we submitted was a bit too much for them to prepare in time. So, Laura, do you want to come up and say a few words? Laura's here. She's not giving a presentation. She's just.
Laura Corey.
Hi, Laura Corey for the South Florida Water Management District. We did receive your letter 2 days ago, and it is technical, and the Water Management District does want to respond, and we are working diligently with the other agencies that we need to coordinate to respond to your questions, and we hope to do that shortly and do want to be engaged, but wanted to be here to let you know that we are responsive and want to be involved. So, wanting to know we will work with DEP, Department of Health, to be able to address your questions.
Laura just wanted everyone to know that if you wanted her in the future, near future again, as this group decides, that she would be available after she's had ample time to address the questions that were submitted.
Right, we are presently looking at the questions and seeing who needs to respond to it, and we will take it through our technical group and then get back to you probably, shortly in June or something.
Will that be in writing? Your answers, will they be to us in writing, or will you come back into a presentation?
I will need to go back and check. It might be both in writing and in person, but I will check back with headquarters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura.
Thank you for attending.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've submitted a copy. Bill put together a really good letter with all the questions, and everyone has a copy of it. I'm sure you may email it out, but there's a copy if everyone wants to review it firsthand. We don't have to go through it here, but
Thank you, Bill.
yes, thank you very much
You did a
for
great job on it.
compiling all that and taking the effort. Wish we had a little bit more time, but things go.
It'll work out.
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay, next thing, let's talk about the water testing. There's a handout that I gave everybody, and this is an attempt, this is a proposal, it's a draft. This is an attempt to start to see if we can formulate some closure on some of these tests and results that are coming forward. The water testing has been completed up to this point. We're obviously waiting on the soil test results, which we understand are a few weeks away. But what we did, Mike and I put together this summary of the water test results for phase 1 and phase 2. And we wanted just to review it with the group, get some comments, and see if we can start to drive the water testing results to some sort of a closure. Further actions that we would want to formally submit to the DOH DEP.
Just for the record, DEP is here. They are not making a presentation on this. They did this last month, but they said they did have some updated information on the water testing. If you'd like to invite them up just to speak for a couple minutes.
Sure. If they have something they want to share, that.
Mr. Lurks or Mr. Long, did you?
Sure, come on up, guys. Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Jack Long, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Southeast District Office. I don't have anything going with me on the water testing, but on the soil testing, we found out that the lab informed us today that the results of the gamma testing will be in their hands by May 31st. The alpha and beta testing have been completed. It will take a little while to upload the data into the appropriate database and certify the data. Once the data has been certified, we can begin the process of tabulating the data for the individual residents, which will take us several weeks. So a tentative schedule would be certification by middle of June, individual packets ready for residents by the beginning of July.
End of July.
Beginning of
July.
Certification by middle of June, individual packets ready for residents by beginning of July.
So public release wouldn't be into mid-July to early summer?
Not until after the residents have had their chance to look at their material.
So we're a solid 2 months away before public release. Shoot.
To the chair. Just ask, what is it that you're testing in the soil? I mean, are you testing for chemicals? What are you testing?
The testing I'm talking about is the radiation testing. Radiation 226, 228.
Is that
Radionuclide.
So is that all you tested the soil for, or you tested it for other?
I believe it was tested for other constituents also. But it's the radiation testing which is causing the delay.
Let me clarify on that. In the beginning, they did some individual radiation testing, and they used the soil and so forth. That was the first testing results that came out. Then after you did the water test, and then from there, I believe you're waiting for the soil test. I know some of the radiation testing is confusing with the soil because they did use some dirt, they went down, and they did some other things. It is not the soil, it's not the same thing.
Okay.
And you're just saying, you're letting us know that it'll be certified and packets will be ready for public distribution by then, by July. Correct?
Right. That's right.
Okay.
All right, so this is not the same.
No, it's not.
The soil testing we did was for the same.
Right, as in the water. Right.
You covered metals, organics, pesticides, PCBs, the whole 9 yards.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, guess what we can do is, if you guys are okay with it, why don't we just, you probably read through it already, but we can just go through it. This statement that this draft statement that we've put together, and then have some discussion about it here, and see what everyone's feelings are on it, modifications, whatnot. So basically, DEP in February 2010 has 28 separate groundwater stations in appropriate areas with respect to the Florida DOH study results, and found generally good water quality. There were numerous inlets that were at or below detection limits, including pesticides, herbicides, PCBs, and volatile or semi-volatile organics and metals. Testing covered the wide range of chemical constituents from agricultural-related products to industrial-related products, including any type of hydrocarbon-based fuel, gasoline, kerosene, diesel, jet, or rocket fuel, with no evidence of groundwater contamination from these types of past or present activities. Several exceedances, iron, sodium, manganese, gross alpha, and radium-226, 228, only in untreated water. I can't pronounce the next two, but anyway. Bromo, dichromo, call like that. Of either Florida primary, secondary drinking water standards or groundwater cleanup target levels were noted, none of which would relate to concentrations sufficient to be of immediate health concern, and none of which have any known correlation to brain cancer. All the exceedances in post-treatment system related to, post-treatment stream related to typical groundwater conditions, iron, manganese, which are an exceedance of secondary standard, or treatment system input products, salt additives, and chlorine additives. There is no known toxicology issue with constituents less than the primary drinking water standards, which are set very low, whether or not they are mixed with other common constituents. Therefore, there is no evidence to suggest that Acreage's community's statistically elevated levels of pediatric brain cancer occurrences are related to groundwater contamination. So, let's have some, go ahead, Tricia.
The only comment, I think the statement is fine, but previously there was water testing done as well.
Phase one?
Phase one.
August 2009,
And there
right?
was what, some 49 or 50
Right.
separate groundwater stations tested, and I didn't know if you wanted to include that.
You would say phase one and phase two, yep.
I think the statement's still true. What I focused on when I put that heading on there was the latest sampling, because those 28 stations, as I understand it, would have been related to the close proximity to the home. So therefore, you have the best data that you can get for those as well as controls.
Right.
So
I understand what you're saying. I just didn't know if this was going to be our official statement saying, you know, the water testing has been done.
We'd like to work to that direction, yeah. This may not be the final format, obviously. Yes, ma'am.
Are we in a position, I know some of the things that I heard here was recommending on some of these exceedances here that maintaining water treatment systems properly, things like that. Do we want to make any recommendation, or are we just going to make a statement? I mean, are we going to make a recommendation that we recommend that water treatment, proper water treatment, professional water treatment, whatever it might need? Is a recommendation here to handle some of these exceedances, or do we not make a recommendation?
I think he's correct on that. It's something that we all learned, specifically with the radiation and knowing that some of the potassium and so forth collected. I think we all learned this, so I think it should include a recommendation.
As
long as we remain on well,
recommendation for our area.
Right. As long as we remain on well, that we all should be using a water, the appropriate water treatment system.
Right.
And again, at some point, I think the focus group just needs to have somebody come in and maybe do a 10 to 15 minute presentation on a healthy, good water treatment system.
Because that's going to vary. That's going to vary a lot. To be honest with you, depth on well and whatever. You know, you bring the professionals. Yeah. They're going to. The professionals are going to determine what type of filtration system they need on each system.
It's called personal responsibility.
Yeah.
That's
And
exactly.
well, I think it's important too to point out maybe that the exceedances were all related to treatment issues.
Correct.
They weren't related to anything other than
That's
that.
right.
So
When you say personal responsibilities, what are you trying to?
You have to
compress?
maintain your water system.
Water
You can't just leave it there. You have to do certain things once a month. You have to maybe rebed the iron filters. These
Do
are all
you
things.
think that knowledge has come up since homes were purchased in the last 10 years that has now made it, oh, I wish I would have known then what I know now? And personal maintenance, personal responsibility would not have interfered in that.
Well, all I know is living here 23 years and selling homes out here, there are a lot of people that do not do anything with their water system.
Right, but there are people who do and still could be getting sick from it.
Through the chair, maybe this is a positive thing that would come from the Acreage Focus Group, is to create a campaign for awareness on why it's important to follow through and treat your water treatment system. So, I see what she's saying with personal responsibility, because I think some people probably made the attempt to do it, but we probably need to educate people on exactly, no differently when we buy a car, we go to the car dealer, we ask specific questions on the car purchase. Now that we all would be a little educated and create awareness, then we need to let everybody know if you don't have X, Y, and Z, you need to be asking these questions, or you need to be obtaining a water treatment system person to come,
Because I can
technician.
tell you it's more than what the builder of my home told me, and the person I
The builder
purchased my.
usually doesn't tell you that. The water, you have a water person
Exactly,
come there
okay,
and
so
tell
we
you
go
what type
there.
of system you need.
It's more than what they told me to ever do. And so I think everybody needs to learn a lot.
So we can create a public safety health campaign when it comes to water treatment systems on homes in the acreage with wells, and, for that matter, in the western community.
Mr. Chair?
Mike, next real quick.
I think Peggy was before me.
I was gonna add to that. I've been on wells all my life and been on water systems all my life, and of course, water systems have gotten better. They've gotten somewhat more sophisticated. A lot of them got more automatic.
Right.
And so, you know, everyone has to educate themselves, like brother said, to everything what system you have. Because if you have iron, you're going to have to treat one way, versus if you don't have iron, you might have hard water. It's all different, different systems. So you have to know your system.
Right. Mike?
Yeah, I think too, it's important to point out that what the exceedances were, and what we're talking about, are something that are very, very common elements that are not unique to the acreage. You're going to find them in any community where they're going to be drawing well water from that have to be treated. So,
And we might be helping
so,
a broader.
and it would be. And if the DEP wants to comment on my statement there to either confirm or deny that, I would love to hear a simple yay or nay. But I think that's the case from my experience. That it's just simple. It's just common elements that you can find anywhere.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I believe at the last meeting when we were speaking to DEP, and I think, Patricia, you were the one that raised the question as to why they didn't test for a particular chemical, and I think it was rocket fuel, was it not?
It was a chemical called hydrazine, but I think it was because...
And he said it's in rocket fuel, and if you smell it, it's very explosive, so I do not believe rocket fuel belongs in this list. Because I believe they said they specifically did not test for it because they had no way to test for it.
But, and the DEP may be able to comment on this, but I think if you've got rocket fuel, you have to have some type of hydrocarbons. You've got to have some indication of a fuel that's petroleum-based.
Well, I understand that, but your statement
So
says the testing covered the wide range of constituents, and
That's right.
but it did not include rocket fuel in the testing, and that's what.
Constituents of rocket.
Constituents in
well,
rocket fuel.
Right, so if you're going to find the constituents of it, then you could suspect it, but if you don't find it, then you wouldn't suspect it. That's what we're saying.
I would personally take the position that we probably need to include it from the standpoint that it was a concern raised because of what happened at Pratt Whitney during a hurricane, that there was a lot of rocket fuel spilled out there.
Well, that was jet fuel, not rocket fuel.
Okay.
So there was a difference.
Okay, well, whatever, cover whatever we need to do, but anything that's been thrown out as a fear here, that people might be afraid of, that we now pretty much have determined isn't a problem, I think we need to address those issues.
To the chair. The one thing that I didn't understand about this specific chemical that I asked why they didn't test for was that you couldn't test for it because it dissipates very quickly. And therefore, I mean, its dangerous nature is right away before it starts to dissolve or whatever the appropriate term is. And maybe we can have the DEP address that issue now because...
We would give formal request them to address it.
I mean, I'm satisfied that it's safe, but if somebody else still has a question, then let's get it.
Yeah, well, we did say, to Vicky's point, that we were going to have the county health department address that follow-up.
Right, as far as the
inspection.
actual spill.
So we probably should follow through with that.
Yeah.
I actually spoke to Erm, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And Erm pretty much said the same thing that the DEP said, that the only thing that they deal with is petroleum-based spills. Any other type of chemical spill they do not deal with.
Right.
And that every single drop of the jet fuel that was spilled on that evening was recovered and either pumped back into the tank or if it was water damaged, it was pumped into a truck and it was removed from the property. And that's what Erm's answer was on that issue.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I do have some concerns with this, and one of them has to do with some recent information. As many of you are probably aware, many of us out here are represented by a legal team. One of the attorneys is here with us tonight, Mara Hatfield with Circe. There has been some recent documentation that she has found that has to do with more than just some of the other issues that we've talked about with Pratt. So if I could take just a couple minutes just to give a little bit of that information, because I think that it ultimately could affect us issuing any kind of a summary statement.
Okay, because real quick, does everyone want to go through it? Spend time to go through it?
Is that all right?
Absolutely. Good.
The county had actually looked at purchasing some land in 2001 from Pratt Whitney. What they were looking at purchasing was a Pratt Whitney water utility and waste facility. They actually had consultants, environmental consultants come in who surveyed and took a look at the area. And I believe they spent somewhere in the ballpark or over $1 million to have that information or that area looked at. After the environmental consultants took a look at that, the county chose not to acquire this land in this area, and included the water treatment facility, the underground insection well, and the well field. The consultants' information that they've given to the county concluded that there was unremediated contamination, there was likely undiscovered contamination, and the entire system of underground pipes whose conveyances and contents were, at that time in 2001, unknown. Then what occurred in 2005 is that Pratt Whitney paid the county over $5 million to hook up to a water facility that was on Mecca property, which is now bringing water into Pratt Whitney. So Pratt Whitney had their own facilities on the area at that time. You know, there is a question as to why it is they are not using, or that they paid over $5 million to hook up to the county water. So, you know, that then looks at it and makes us wonder, with this contamination that was found, the fact that the county did spend so much money and chose not to purchase those water fields and use them, that Pratt does not use those water fields. When DEP was doing our investigation and looking at things, it's my understanding that based on some of the contaminants that with us, which include things as vinyl chloride, PCBs, chromium, cadmium, lead, and copper, that there would actually have to be a specific protocol in place for testing. And based on that specific protocol, I don't know that that was done for our testing that was done here in our area. And then also from this, the concern that came up was what reporting was done on these contaminants and on this land. Did DEP get any kind of information regarding this, and were they aware of these contaminations? And the reporting that we had gotten prior from when DEP was here and talked about contaminations from Pratt Whitney only had to do with the dioxin 1,4, not any of these other contaminants, which, you know, leads me to have an awful lot of questions as to the testing that was done, and perhaps this is something that we need to look into a little bit further before moving forward with this.
The information concerning the county and what they found, is this in some sort of a written document that the county has possession of that you now have? And is it something that could be shared with the group?
I do not have a copy of that, but Mara is here if she can talk to the group for a moment regarding that.
I think Mr. Long, do you give a comment?
If I could.
They have some additional information.
No, it's it's a request. We didn't know anything about this. The law firm didn't send us a copy of it. If somebody wants to send us a copy of it, we'll be happy to look at it.
Yeah, that's.
I don't have any
Through the
comments
chair?
tonight.
Yes.
When county government purchases any piece of property, if they paid for any testing, it's all public records.
Right.
So we can request those documents. In fact, I'll write a public records request on behalf of the group tomorrow to Mr. Weissman to get copies of any, whatever the funding they spend has to be accounted for, and all of the testing that was done during that time, and they need documents written to say why they didn't purchase it or recommendations. we can officially request it on behalf of the Acreage Community Focus Group for documents for us to
Since
share.
it's being raised as an issue, right?
Specifically, but I have to say, just being in the position I've been in for years, to come here and say that statement, knowing that we take 30 days to meet, would have been nice had somebody presented it in a black and white document for us to at least have somebody to be able to address that. Obviously, there is a document, you have it written in writing instead of actually us seeing the physical document. And those are the type of things that this group is formed to work through, is we're supposed to be together working through all that. So it would have been nice to have a copy of that documentation and have DEP prepared.
If I may, if I had more notice on that, I would more than have been happy to put that into any documents. I personally do not have a copy of the document. I've seen the document, and the document is several inches thick. So again, I questioned when we got the agenda where it's talked about there being a summary statement. I actually asked Andrew about that yesterday, and I did not know any of the information that I know right now that I just shared with the group. So I actually think that it's a good thing having up-to-date information and being able to share it with our group as soon as possible. The reason I'm also bringing this up at this point is because there is this summary statement that's been issued. And I think that we do have some concerns before we put anything out regarding this and regarding these water testing results, if this is an issue that's out there.
I agree with your concerns. Please don't mistake what I'm saying. It just would have been nice to have a copy of that documentation so that we would have the appropriate people to respond to it. It sounds like you got a summarized version of it.
Mr. Chair, if the attorney's here, why don't we hear from her?
Without any documentation to back it up.
Well, I'm sure she's got the document. I'm assuming she's got the documentation. If that's what's being said, why don't we hear from the attorney? If she's in the room, we can ask the question, do you have the document or not have the document?
Group one out, listen, attorney. Can I present?
I know.
Sure. Mayor, you want to come on up and tell us what you got?
My hands shake, so I'm not very good with handheld microphones. I don't.
If you like, Tracy, you can turn yours and you can share Tracy's microphone.
Oh, excellent.
What's this attorney's name?
Yes, ma'am, could you?
My name is Mara Hatfield. I'm with Farm Cersei Denny's Grill, Barnard and Chipley. We are co-counsel with Weiss and Luxembourg, with several of the members of the panel, as well as several families in the acreage, some of whom have been involved in the Department of Health study. I've attended every single interview the Department of Health has had with the families of children that have had pediatric cancer.
Can't hear.
Sorry. Okay. And the reason that I did not bring these documents out earlier was because I did not have an opportunity to share them with my clients before today. I did not have an opportunity to share them with my clients before today because I wanted to get the full feedback of all of my co-counsel on them and decide what is best to share in this sort of a forum and still preserve our client rights. In addition to that, I've been at these meetings and it's been made clear that some people consider us to be a biased source, and I have absolutely no desire to bias this panel or to jeopardize the work that you're doing, because I appreciate it. That said, the materials that I found and what I'm prepared to tell you about them are all available through a public records request. I myself personally got them through the Palm Beach County Water Utilities District, EDC Blood. There is a rather large file on it. I took with me copies that I could have made on the spot of the environmental site assessments that were done by contractors of the Palm Beach County Water Utility District. I also am awaiting copies of other materials. The copy that I have here has my stickies on it, and I can't really share that. I'm sorry about that, but there is some attorney-client privilege work there as well as work on it. But what my understanding is that the county had looked into purchasing what's known as the utility parcel.
Do you have a parcel number? Could you share with us or not?
No, I don't.
Okay.
How about a bound or?
Any reference information to make it easier for us to?
Why don't you tell us the
Where is
name of the document that you have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a
Where
document
is the
number or
problem?
something.
Yeah.
That'd be-
What I have here is a final ESA, which means Environmental Site Assessment Report. This one happened to be written by Camp Dresser and McKee, which was the independent consultant hired by Palm Beach County Water Utilities, which was the potential acquirer for the site owned by Pratt and Whitney. The reason that we are concerned now, and the reason that this came up now, was because there seems to be an effort by this group to announce a finality to the water testing that has been done. And in light of this information, that might be premature, and you might want to consider this. It was not meant as a scare tactic, as a surprise venture, or anything like that.
That's the point of this, is we want to try to drive to a final conclusion. If there's more investigation needs to be done, then let's bring it up. Let's not leave any stone unturned. So,
Is there anything else that you want to tell me about
Can you
this?
give me the date of the report?
This report is December 2001. In addition, there is on file a draft Phase 2 assessment, which actually precedes this Phase 1 assessment. Another thing that I would like to say, just because I don't want to make the DEP feel on the spot that they were here, it does not appear to me in any way that DEP is aware of these things. So we weren't trying to sabotage anybody.
What was the date of the draft Phase 2 assessment?
The draft, I believe, is April 2001. And there are several memoranda regarding those issues. And there was one error that I just wanted to clarify. I believe it cost, one of the site assessments was $175,000. The other one was around the same amount. The over $1 million figure was what the county was considering purchasing the water utility parcel for, and $500,000 for the well field. And instead, Pratt & Whitney, through the Beeline Development District, which actually wound up acquiring many of the Spurn utility parcels for a time, wound up being through a bond venture with Pratt, purchasing into a customer agreement with the county to get water from a Mecca pump site. The pump site that's on Mecca does not get raw water from here, it pumps it up from elsewhere.
let me just ladies first.
Thank you. Back in 2001, the county purchased the Mecca Farms.
2004, right?
2004. They purchased the Mecca Farms property in hopes of script. Now, I'm just recollecting because I went to a lot of the meetings. I thought that they were looking for Pratt Whitney to provide water to Mecca Farms, had it surveyed, decided to put their own use Mecca Farms water system and hook up to the county. Is this the same thing that you're referring to?
That sounds like a set of circumstance that could be involved in this set of circumstance. The only thing that I can tell you is what's available in public records, and these site assessments started as early 2001.
Correct.
The inquisition from the county to look into purchasing this utility parcel and water facility and well field from Pratt & Whitney started in late '99.
Okay. And the document that you have and that you have obviously read, you're saying that states that there was contamination? I'm a little confused here.
Yes.
There was contamination at Pratt Whitney site?
At Pratt Whitney site and emanating off the site.
Okay, and that has to do with the acreage?
Well, we don't know for a fact. It's just it's a site that has contamination on it, whether or not it has.
Okay, that's close.
Yeah.
That's fairly close. Is that, yes? I mean, I'm confused. I don't really understand what Pratt Whitney has to do with the acreage. I don't mean to sound ignorant, but...
What it is it is a little bit distant, but it's proximate in the sense that there's no development between Pratt and here. So
correct.
While you are lengthwise distant, you are considered approximately downstream. So when you have things that are emanating off-site in their groundwater, in their surface water, in their soils, which are not treated by any kind of stormwater treatment system, and you have an alkali, you have a reason to believe that there's a high acid and alkali environment, you are concerned that those materials could be leaching or did leach at some time into your groundwater. And so to not develop a protocol specific to that adjacent for some purposes, not all. I grant you it's not, right,
Right.
within eyesight. I feel like talking about Alaska and Russia for some reason. I would think before you declared that the water is good and clean now, and my bigger concern would be before you say it definitely had nothing to do with cancers that were escalated between 2001 and 2009 when you consider a latency effect, even if it's only 6 months. Are you telling me that you're sure that the water today, reading it, considers this site and what it was doing to the water here in 2003, 2004, 2005? I just think you guys are acting a little premature. Until you can, it may be that you talk to the Department of Health and they say, we knew about this, facilities told us, we informed DEP and the protocol was fine. I don't think that's true from what I've seen, but I'm just saying I think that your answer is premature.
I have a question on the tract that you're talking about that was planned to be developed as a well field. Is that immediately adjacent to the frac landing plant?
As a what field?
Yes. It's immediately adjacent to the utility parcel.
I'd like to just address her comment there. I think that what we've put out here, just for the sake of the group, is accurate. It's substantiated by fact. What you're talking about just now is a speculation that has no basis in fact.
No, this is speculative. This
This
is highly speculative.
No, what you just, excuse me.
Say
What
that
you
there is
just
therefore
said.
no evidence to suggest
Excuse
that
me.
the
What you just said was this, that there's a possible connection between Pratt & Whitney's contamination and pediatric brain cancer in the Acreage. What we're saying is that the evidence is contrary to that, and it's actual data that has been provided by the DEP. Now, it behooves us to go ahead and check out your contention that there was some contamination at the Pratt & Whitney plant, but we already knew that. We knew that there was at least one chemical constituent at the plant that has leached off-site. But to speculate or to make the assumption that that has gone to the extent and now it's potential contamination of the acreage, and that further that it actually has some effect on brain cancers of various types, is just gross speculation with no basis in fact. I would like to see if you are going to make, if you or your client or whoever's going to make that speculation, that there's a basis of fact with those two elements. And I've seen none.
This is full of data. This is evidence.
It can't possibly be what you just said.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question. I just wanted to know what the list of chemicals was because she went through them so fast, I didn't catch all that.
We'll get the report.
Bill,
Bill, go ahead.
Okay. I believe there are two subjects here. One is this statement right here. Okay, and the next subject is how this information applies. In reference to this statement, I've read it. Some things I think are absolutely fact. I think that there are a lot of them are accurate statements. My concern is that as an unbiased, impartial group panel, why we would highlight the word none and bold all the way that nice sentence at the bottom. That's not objective presentation of information. That's a declarative statement, and I think it's highly opinionated.
It's a summary.
Well, I wasn't asked about my opinion, so therefore to highlight something, I think it's that's the first thing. Second thing is, as we go through this, I've already been told and asked questions here in the panel with toxologists and other people that there's some gaps that I feel that are there in the water samples. One, they may come back with an element that's a small portion of a compound but doesn't recognize the compound as being there. So I think that there's some problems I have with that. We got into the cocktail subject about multiple contaminants of all small values. basically, if we're going to present a summary, my opinion is that we've been given X amount of facts. Okay, none of us here are biochemists or anywhere qualified to make a declarative summary statement based upon what we've been told. We either accept what we've been told so far or we don't. But that's about the limit of, I think, what a statement that can be made. Whether I believe the subject of drinking water is completely resolved yet, I don't think we're anywhere near it. Not in an area where groundwater is the recharging factor and documented recharging factor of aquifers, and there's so many questions out here. With respect to Mara, I don't know why this causes hostility with people, but I think if someone wants that hostility, we can pick some targets here. I'm getting pretty tired of having things being brought to me by, someone says, hey, did you hear about this? That's a factual document. I've read the document. It says in all probability there are much more contaminants that had surfaced at that point in time, and I've read it. So with respect to the fact that you haven't read it yet, I'm not directing this comment to you, but I guess what I'm saying is that I'm getting pretty damn tired of hearing stuff secondhand. The health department's been asked already, DEP's been asked already, everybody's been asked already about Pratt & Whitney. You're telling me that I'm going to be told now, a year later, okay, oh yeah, there was something that was done. Right now, there's no way anyone here, I think, can objectively say that they have enough information to make a declarative statement.
Sure, that's why we're putting this out there. Let's.
And like I said, it doesn't come with goals, and it doesn't come with exclamations points or any other things. That's not objective.
Well, let me comment on that, because I was responsible for putting all this together. Here, the issue is this. We have analytes that were tested. They were tested right at the sources.
We?
I'm sorry?
Who analyzed?
No, the testing that was done by the state.
So it's not we, it's the state tested, okay.
That we reviewed.
Okay.
I didn't mean we personally. The state had tested the water at the sources. Not some, we don't know where they are. But 28 sources, they tested. They tested the water there, they tested at control sites. What they found was what is stated here. So, based upon the sampling, based upon the fact that the DEP is not looking to do further testing because they didn't find anything, and because in their phase 1 and the earlier phase 1 that the FDOH did, they did not find sources for it other than agriculture and Pratt & Whitney. So with that, there wasn't a facility that you could go test around and do it was either ag or the Pratt & Whitney site. So what you would do then is you would base your sampling upon those constituents that you would find in those applications, which is what they did. And they did a full range of applications. They didn't just do metals or PCBs or pesticides. They did the full gamut of everything they could think of that would be applied in those situations. And they did it twice. And they did it at the sources. So if you wanted to make some correlation between the groundwater and health problems, cancer in this case, then that would be the way scientifically to do it, to validate whether you have a hypothesis that some source, no matter what it is, Pratt & Whitney, whatever, is making its way to those homes who are drawing the well water out and then consuming it or being exposed to it. So if you don't have that, then our statement is absolutely correct, that there is no evidence to suggest. And it's not trying to be mean-spirited or anything else. It's just a statement of fact that that's what the water results have come back to say.
Okay, just to clarify.
Let's Leanne.
I'm actually going to agree with Bill on this. I think this is premature in light of what was just given to us.
It's a draft.
And I personally would like to review the documents and then maybe talk about issuing a statement as well. Because if I'm not misunderstanding, there was no studies on like a cross-contamination when you mix certain chemicals with other chemicals, correct?
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Like when they did the water samples, they didn't do studies of what happens when certain chemicals are mixed with other chemicals. Even though the levels came back low, like normal, what studies have been done when you mix the two? Like when you mix different chemicals together?
Well, I don't know what chemicals you're referring to, but those chemicals in groundwater are mixed all the time, all over the place.
I know, but
Are you
there's no
suggesting that
studies.
are you suggesting there that there's a different mix in the acreage than there would be somewhere else?
No, what I'm
Because
wondering,
that would be an appropriate hypothesis to make, to say, well, we have a different mix of chemicals here that are somehow working in synergy together.
we might, but we don't know that for sure either. I mean, have we compared?
Well, we do know that because they've done the testing on as many parameters as we could possibly get. See what I'm
Two
concerned
other
about.
well systems.
Yeah, but what I'm concerned about is that when you make speculations based upon something that isn't even founded in science yet,
Understandable.
you can't prove it.
Are you making the speculation?
No.
But I think,
Making a speculation.
let me just finish my statement for a second, please. Can I finish? Okay, but I think as of right now, we can extend this conversation, but until we all have a chance to read that documentation, I think
Which
that,
documentation?
the one that was just brought to us
Okay,
today.
that's pertinent, Whitney, but that doesn't affect what we were talking about.
But I think it actually does, because this is still talking about contamination.
All right, so can I just explore this a little bit further? Because what they're making, and there's a speculation that some contamination, this is the heart of the matter. You're making a speculation that some contamination has come from Pratt & Whitney, no matter what it is. I don't care what it is. I don't know what it is. But you're making a speculation that some contamination has traveled miles through the groundwater and has reached these homes and has impacted them to such a degree and have such concentrations that it's caused health problems, i.e. pediatric brain cancer. Now, if you're making that speculation, you would expect to see some minute or something, but we got ND, nothing detected.
On that day, Chair, on that day that it was tested.
But do you think that this
I would just like
groundwater
to
plume
Yes.
minor
is
that I'm
going
not
to
on
go,
this panel, and I would like
come
to thank
to
him.
the acreage, move off-site, and never be seen again?
Excuse me, just one second. First of all, I'm not a member of this panel, and I would like to thank the panel for inviting me up here to give this to you, and I thank you. I do have one thing to say in defense of myself, because I do have a master's of studies in environmental law and science, and like you, I am an environmental professional. And to be sitting here and told that I'm speculating things, when I distinctly remember you coming to a public meeting and saying, until we know wait 1 second. Until we know a source of contamination and identify that plume and where it could have gone, we don't know what to do. That's all that I'm saying these clients want to have done. There's an identified plume. They want to find out where it went. That is it.
I'm sorry.
It's inappropriate to allow liberal accusations and not to.
Let's all stop throwing accusations.
Through the chair, Diana's next, Patricia, Stephanie, and then Bill. Diana, Patricia, Stephanie, then Bill.
Laura, you went through a list of the contaminants that were found on the property, and I got PCBs, there was vinyl something or other.
You know what? I really would rather just.
We'll pull the report.
Yeah.
We'll pull the report.
Are these things something that cause brain cancer?
It is my understanding that vinyl chloride is the most heavily associated constituent to cause brain cancer.
Okay, thank you.
We'll pull the report. Patricia.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh, Patricia. Come on, Jack, we'll get you here.
Wait, for 1 second, Myra, and I don't mean to simmer.
It's okay.
Yeah, and then
It's
Tracy
Mara.
can, I'm sorry?
It's Mara.
Mara, I apologize.
It's okay.
And then Tracy can sit back, and then everybody can kind of breathe for a second, reflect your thoughts.
Okay, first off, I just want to say that on the Mecca Farm site, they were actually looking to get the water utilities from Seacoast Utilities.
Correct.
And unless Pratt & Whitney is the same as Seacoast Utilities, I don't think that there's a relation there. I recall looking at some of the old, and one, I would like to see the documentation from Palm Beach County Water Utilities that has been brought, to our attention tonight. But when I read some of the old reports concerning some of the initial accidents at Pratt & Whitney, I seem to recall reading information about well fields, wells that they were actually using for water supply for their own plant operations for the employees there. And I read those reports and they came from DEP. So I don't, or whoever was doing the investigation, it may have been EPA or whatever, but I'm sure DEP would have access to that information. So maybe simultaneously with getting this report, DEP can maybe go back to their records to look to see what information, and I know specifically I read about utilities. So I don't know whether it's the same site. I'm thinking it probably could be, so maybe Palm Beach County Water Utilities didn't know if DEP knew about it. I find myself agreeing with Mike and with Bill. You know, the water test results that we have received have shown that there is no evidence of contamination for a whole host of chemicals. Some of these chemicals may be the same ones being noted in this report from Palm Beach County Water Utilities. I have no idea. We're going to need to compare them. But as for the water testing that has been done, both in February and from last year, nothing has been found except for things that might relate to your water treatment system or things that your filtration system is holding. I agree with Bill. It's probably not appropriate to highlight in bold.
I'll take the blame for that one.
The final
I
statement.
apologize. I'm not trying to offend anybody.
We're not qualified to say there's nothing wrong. What we're qualified to do is look at the information as it's brought to this board and see if we have a consensus as to whether or not we're satisfied. And in my mind, that's the question. Are we satisfied with the testing results that have been done? If there are more elements that you would like to have tested, as a group, I think we need to come to some sort of consensus as to whether or not we think those chemicals should also be tested for and then ask for them.
Thank you. Stephanie.
He's on the list.
Okay, Bill, you had another?
No, Stephanie.
No, Stephanie wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
thought
that's
that you
okay.
were, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to defer to him
Yeah.
first. That's okay. No, I'm going to go jump in front of him. Well, we are looking to put this on hold, is I think my understanding right now. With respect to that last statement, and I'm not sure if, Patricia, you and I are going to say the same thing with this. The only other concern with reading that last statement as well has to do with the testing of the water that has been done is this time frame right now. It's not the time frame when, if there could have been anything there that could have caused any cancers or pediatric brain tumors or cancers. That latency period for that would not correlate with this statement. So,
Nothing to do with it.
excuse me?
It really would have nothing to do with our statement. What happened in the past, we're not making any recommendations.
No, but it's saying there's no evidence to suggest that the Acreage Community statistically elevated pediatric brain cancer occurrences are related to groundwater contamination. We only know about our groundwater at this time and when we have it tested now. We don't know what our groundwater was, 4, 5, 6, 8 years ago.
I can tell you what it was
So,
20 years ago.
but we didn't have the study done then, so we didn't have the DEP who was doing the number of wells being tested at that time. So I think that this statement could then lead folks to believe that our groundwater has been fabulous all along. Maybe it has been, but we just don't know. So that is another.
I don't know how we can prove that.
How is that going to be proven?
Well, it's not. It's not, but that's why this statement, I don't think we can say that and know whether or not it's true.
No differently than you've only identified a pediatric cancer cluster from 05, 06, 07, so 08, 09, and 2010, there is no identified cancer cluster. So we're going to make that statement. Nobody has done it.
08, O'Connor did state that 08, Ventura and Watkins state that 2008 alone by itself is a cluster.
That's because it had 4.
And we have that in our group.
Okay. Mike, for a point.
Okay.
Was it Bill?
I just want to,
I think Bill?
I want to,
Actually, Bill.
I had my hand up a long time ago. There is no evidence, and that's what I was getting at there. And if that was one of the things I was pointing out to you, Andrew, is that one of the reasons for getting this out is not to close debate, but have debate on substance. So if there is evidence, we want to hear it.
Yeah.
If there's anything, and that was the point of this. Because today, with the sampling that's been done, there is none. So
But this might tell the county health department no more testing.
What's
So
that?
that might tell the county that the community is all in agreement,
Okay, so
everything's fine and
that's a good
dandy.
point.
We don't want to do
Right,
that.
that's a good point. What I would suggest, and I'm not trying to be argumentative here, what I'm trying to do is explain this is what we have so far. But if you think, and if you have a good valid reason for thinking so, and that there's something that we can actually explore, and we should, then I think I and everybody else want to hear it. And so then we can go on, but we don't want to, I don't think, sit here and not get anywhere. I think, Bill, that's your frustration.